إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. واشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى أهله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We give praise and thanks to Almighty Allah. We ask Him to shower His blessing upon the noblest of mankind, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, we're still on the book Az-zakaat fi-l-Islaam Fi-Dh-Dhawi-l-Kitaab was-Sunnah. Az-zakaat in Islam under the light of the Kitab, Al-Qur'aan al-Kareem, and the Sunnah, the Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, by the author of the popular book Hisnu-l-Muslim, Al-Sheikh, الدكتور Sa'id ibn Ali ibn Wahf ibn Muhammad Al-Qahtaani. He died in the 12th of Muharram, 1440, which is equivalent to Tuesday, the 1st of October, 2018. Died at the age of 68. Alhamdulillah, we started reading the book from the beginning and we got to al-kharij min al-ard or al-mustakhraj min al-ard, the things that are extracted, wealth that is extracted from the earth. The very first thing that we took under this were farm produce. We said the scholars are agreed that on the issue of farm produce, something that is cultivated in someone's farm, that they are agreed on 4 items, on 2 categories, and 2 items under each category, making 4 items in total. And that is that for seed-like produce, then it is wheat and barley that they are agreed on, all scholars of Sunnah, that we have to pay zakah on them. On anything other than wheat and barley, there are differences of opinion. We treated that so we can review that. On fruit-like farm produce, they all agree that dates and raisins, that is dried grapes, these two, dried grapes and dates, are those things that are zakatable. Beyond this, for fruit-like produce, like your mango, like your apple, things like this, there are differences of opinion amongst the scholars regarding that. Allahu A'lam, we settled for holding on to what the Prophet ﷺ did during his time, which is responsible for the ijma', that these 4 are the things that are zakatable out of farm produce. So these farm produce, they are al-kharij min al-ard, things that we extract from the earth. Are there other things that we extract from the earth? Yes. One of it is a Rikaaz. We also talked about ma'adin. Ma'adin are ores that are in the earth. Things like your iron, like your bitumen, like your coal, like your natural gas, like your crude oil, whatever it is, in whatever physical state, whether it is liquid, it is gel, it is solid, whatever, it is gaseous, these are regarded as ores. There's difference of opinion among the scholars whether those that are in the liquid state are part of it or not. But the more correct opinion, Allahu A'lam, is that anything that is in the earth that is not sand and has value, then it is wealth that is subject to zakah, and it is called ma'adin. Or whenever it is found, then zakah is to be paid on it. In this one, there is no howl. There's no waiting for one lunar calendar to expire before one qualifies to pay. One qualifies to pay this immediately one finds it. So that is with this ore. Now, gold and silver are also ores. So for gold and silver, if one finds it, immediately one finds it, it is ma'adin, and one is to pay zakah on it. Then thereafter, because it is silver or because it is gold, then one will pay zakah on it annually if it is up to the nisaab. At the point of finding it, there's no howl to wait for in terms of time. There is also no nisaab to wait to count to determine whether you're going to pay zakah or not. Once you find it and it is ore, it is part of the earth, then you pay zakah on it. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu anfiqu min tayyibati ma kasabatum wa mimma akhrajna lakum min al-ard. For you who have believed, spend out of what you have earned, the good things that you have earned, and of those things that we have extracted from the earth from you. So when gold and silver, like any other ore that we talked about, is discovered, we pay zakah on them. We don't, there's no nisaab that the Prophet ﷺ has fixed for them. And we also do not wait for a year because the Prophet ﷺ did not fix a year from them. After that, all other ores, there's no zakah on them except if they are trade goods. So if you discover diamonds at the point of discovery, you pay zakah on it. Thereafter, there's no zakah on it again, except if it is a trade good. You're trading in diamond. But if you're using it at home, I mean, you're using it for jewelry or anything like that, there is no, or you're keeping it, there's no zakah on it, even though it's a treasure, it's a store of wealth. We talked about that it, something being a store of wealth does not make it zakatable. What is zakatable is what we have text in the Sharia for, that it is zakatable. So what is the zakah on ma'adin? The difference of opinion among the scholars. Some say because it is extracted from the earth, like farm produce is extracted from the earth, then we pay 10% on it. But this position is weak because farm produce is cultivated. This one is not cultivated. Farm produce, the zakah on it can be 5% or 10% depending on how you water it. You do not water gold or crude oil. You utilize it, you know, like that. You don't grow it and all that. So some of the scholars say that the zakah is the zakah of one of them, which is, or two of them, gold and silver. So gold and silver are ores too, and the zakah paid on them is 2.5%. So at the point of discovery, we pay 2.5% on ores. Allahu A'lam, this is the more correct opinion. And if it is gold and silver, after the initial discovery, we'll also pay 2.5% if what was discovered or what was added to what was discovered after a year reaches the nisaab. Then after a year from its attainment of the nisaab, we begin to pay 2.5%. If it is less than 2.5%, we do not pay zakah on it. I'm sorry, if it is less than the nisaab, we do not pay 2.5%, which is the zakah on gold, silver, and currency, because currency, it takes the place of gold and silver. Gold and silver in the Sharia are the original currencies. So when we dealt with that, then we now came to Az-zakaat al-Rikaaz, zakat al-Rikaaz. Now, Rikaaz, the Sheikh rahimahullah says, wa Rikaaz huwa difnu al-jahiliyyah. Rikaaz is difnu, something that was buried, al-jahiliyyah, at the time of jahiliyyah, before Islam as brought by Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam came. So not only before that time, also in a land before it is taken over by the Muslims. So either in an era before the Prophet ﷺ was raised as a prophet, or even after that in a land where they didn't submit to Islam, and later on the Muslims found this item, this wealth in the territory. So wa kanzuha, it is the treasure of Jahiliyyah. It is treasure that was buried in time of Jahiliyyah. Wa huwa madfun fil ard. It is something that is buried on land, which means a shipwreck carrying gold or any other treasure like that sunk into the ocean or river or any other water body does not qualify as Rikaaz. If somebody finds it, he keeps it. There's nothing to pay as zakah on it. It has to be madfun fil ard, something that is buried on earth. Wa yuqalu lahu rikaz. It is called the Rikaaz. Why? لأن صاحبه ركزه fil ard. Because the one who owned it originally, the kafir who owned it originally, concentrated it in a spot in the earth. So rakaza is to concentrate something somewhere. So Rikaaz is that which was concentrated at the spot, i.e. buried at that singular spot. Not that it was spread out or something like that. I athbatahu. So the person established it, buried it in that spot. Wa fihi al-khumus. The zakah to pay for Rikaaz is al-khumus, 1/5. That is 20%. 1/5 of what you find, 1/5 of what you find buried during the time of Jahiliyyah, now discovered at the time of Islam, or at the time of Islam, during the rule of Islam. The one who finds it is to pay 1/5, 1/5 of it, 20% of it. And why is that? That's because of the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, who said, Anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qal, that Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a hadith, Al-ajama jurhuha jubbar. This hadith contains other things apart from the evidence for paying 1/5, 20% on Rikaaz. So we'll take it up, bi'idhnillah. Al-ajama is an animal. It is called al-ajama from ajama, someone who is not able to speak clearly. And that is where the word a'jam or ajami is gotten from, a non-Arab. So when someone is speaking in a language different from Arabic, because the Arabs could not understand what he was saying, they will say is ajami, and plural a'jam. So likewise, because animals cannot speak in a language that we humans understand, we likewise call them ajama. So al-ajama, jurhuha, jarhu is an injury. That injury could be fatal or non-fatal. It's still an injury. So the injury caused by an animal, jubbar, is not prosecutable. It's a loss. It's not prosecutable. So this is what the Prophet ﷺ said. And what this means is that if a wild animal, for instance, injures somebody, then it is not prosecutable. Even if it's a tamed animal, once it is not under the control of its owner or its renter or the person in charge of, guarding it, or taming it or holding it, if it is not within the protection of that person, if it's cuts loose, maybe somebody is walking a dog, for instance, and it breaks off from its leash, not due to carelessness on the part of the one who was holding it, but it broke off from its leash and it attacked somebody. Whether that injury is fatal or not, the Prophet ﷺ said it is jubbar. And this is because these animals by nature, they are not, whether we tame them or they are not tamed, they remain risks. They are not able to remain tamed 100% of the time. So they remain risks. And once the society accepts these risks, they are accepting it, knowing that whenever, even if it is 1% of the time, it goes wild, then this is the consequence of what they have accepted. So whether it is a cow that runs, wild into the market and begins to gore people, it is part of the risk that we have accepted to allow cows in our society. So we bear that risk, and the one who owns the cow or the dog is not liable in this case. However, if it was due to willful action, somebody set the dogs on somebody else, or carelessness, he didn't put a leash on the dog, and the dog went to harm somebody, or anything similar to this, or the person was with the animal when the animal, he was holding the leash of the dog, or he was holding the rope around the neck of the cow, and the cow injured somebody or killed somebody, then the person will be liable, because he was in charge of controlling that animal, and he was there right there and then. So this is what this means. Al-ajama, jurhuha jubbar. Likewise, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ continually said, al-bi'r jubbar, a well, injury sustained in relation to a well, either the person digging it or the person contracted to dig it, or somebody walking and he falls into, a well. All these are also jubbar. Digging a well is a necessity, but we need to get water and things like that. But it's associated with a risk. Wherever a well is constructed, we know that there's a risk that somebody can fall into it. That's while digging it or cleaning it, it can collapse on you and all that. So the one doing that job, or the one walking in that vicinity, knows that, or the one drawing water from a well, he knows that he could slip and fall into the well. So this is a risky situation, but we've come to accept it. So when that risk happens, then it is jubbar. non-prosecutable. It's a loss that no compensation will be gotten, in exchange. Wal-ma'din jubbar. Likewise, what do you call mines? So a mine that is set up in order to extract ores is also a high risk, thing. People die in coal mines, for instance, because gas, is emitted there, and humans are not able to smell, the gas, effectively. So they can inhale quantities of this gas that will, kill them, and they will die there. That's why people who miners in the old days, before technology to detect some of these mines, are there, they will take, small birds along with them in cages to the mines. So when the bird dies, then they know that the quantity of gas there has increased, and it's time for them to go out of that mine. But there's now technology, to help with respect to the risk associated with gas emission in coal mines and similar mines where gas is emitted. But apart from that, explosions happen in these mines. These mines also collapse. So these are risks. Anybody working in that situation knows there's a risk. Anybody living in the vicinity of that mine knows that this risk is there. So when that risk happens, because you knew you're an intelligent human being, you have your intellect with you, so you chose to work in that mine, you chose to live close to that mine, and all that, whether it is in the office or a residential accommodation located there, when that risk occurs, jubbar, it is jubbar. It is non-prosecutable. There's no claim to be made against that injury. Wa-fi Rikaaz. So the hadith ends by saying wa-fi Rikaaz al-khumus. And for Rikaaz, treasure discovered during the time of Islam but was buried there during the time of Jahiliyyah, there is 1/5 to pay, 1/5 to pay, 20% to pay as zakah. No waiting for 1 year. And you are not waiting for 1 year. Once you find it, there's Rikaaz, and there's also there's 1/5 or 20% to pay. And also there's no nisaab, just like ma'adin. There's no nisaab. Whatever you find, you pay 1/5 of it in az-zakah. Now, so there's also a version of this same hadith, just with slight changes, recorded by Imam Al-Muslim. Wal-khumus yajib wal-khumus yajib fi qalilihi wa kathirihi. Whatever you find as rikaz, whether it is small or big, much or little, you're going to pay 20% of it, 1/5. Min ayyin now. And that is because the Prophet ﷺ does not set a nisaab for a rikaz. He only sets the percentage, the fraction to pay in zakah on rikaz. كان من غير من أي كان من غير حول لذلك. So we are not also going to wait for one lunar calendar, as we said. ويجب على كل من وجده من أهل الزكاة وغيرهم. So zakah is another exemption with respect to rikaz, is that you are going to pay that 1/5, whether you are one of the people obliged to pay zakah or not. When we want to start the issue of zakah, one of the first things we treated was, what are the conditions that must be met before someone can be asked to pay zakah? One of it is that he must be a Muslim. One of it is that he must be, an adult, someone, a mukallaf. One of it is that he must, the wealth must have stayed with you for 1 year, one lunar calendar, that is it. And other conditions that we mentioned. But in this case of Rikaaz, you are not, the person who finds it is whoever who finds it. A child finds it, brings it to his parents, 1/5 is going to be paid on it. A kafir finds it, 1/5 is to be paid on it. A poor Muslim who is a recipient of zakah ordinarily finds it, 1/5 is to be paid on it. So whoever finds it is going to pay 1/5 as zakah on Rikaaz. Now, so there are some details that we should go to on Rikaaz. There are some subtopics under Rikaaz. The scholars are virtually agreed on what we have said with respect to Rikaaz. And this is what Imam Al-Qahtaani said. He said, وَفِي Rikaaz al-Khumus. And the portion of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, وَفِي Rikaaz al-Khumus, 1/5 is paid as Rikaaz, says, وَهُوَ أَيْضًا مَجْمُوعَ عَلَيْهِ. There's ijma of the scholars on it. وقال ابن منذر, Imam Ibn Mundhir said, لا نعلم أحدا خالف هذا الحديث. We don't know anybody who goes against this hadith. إلا Al-Hasan al-Basri. The Imam Al-Hasan al-Basri said, فإنه فرق بين ما يوجد في أرض الحرب وأرض العرب. He made a distinction between what was found in the lands of the Arabs and outside of the land of Arabs. But there's no evidence for this. So let us skip it. All the other scholars agreed on the hadith. The hadith is evidence in and of itself, even if nobody, agrees to it. And we cannot find a hadith where, the Muslims will go against that in ijma. Now, المسألة الأولى أن الركاز الذي يتعلق به وجوب الخمس ما كان من دفن الجاهلية. What you are to pay, buried treasure that one is to pay 20% on, 1/5 out of, is that which was buried in the time of Jahiliyyah, is wealth that was buried during the time of Jahiliyyah. ويعتبر ذلك بأن ترى عليه بأن ترى عليه علامتهم. So the way you will know is if you see the signs of Jahiliyyah on it. Ka asma'i mulukihim. Maybe they inscribed, maybe you found a currency, for instance, or ceramic or whatever it is, and inscribed on it was the name of the king during the time of Jahiliyyah. Wa suwarihim. Or you found the portrait, the picture engraved on the item that you find. Wa salbihim, or you found a cross or any other thing that showed a religion that was different from Islam on that item that you found, or in the container in which it was kept, or anything like that. Wa nahwi dhalika, or you found it in an excavated church or an excavated shrine or anything like this. All these point to, Jahiliyyah. فَإِنْ كَانَ عَلَيْهِ عَلَامَةُ الْإِسْلَامِ. If the emblem of Islam was found there, you're going in the desert and you excavated something and you found, the seal of the Prophet ﷺ on it, or the seal of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq on it, or Umar or Uthman, or any of the Muslim leaders, then وَنَحْوُ ذَلِكَ فَهُوَ لُقَطَةٌ. Then if then if you find this, then it is luqata. It is lost and found. It is not Rikaaz. It is not. Rikaaz is for the one who found it. Luqata is not for the one who found it. It is someone else's property that was lost but found. Rikaaz, it was buried during the time of Jahiliyyah. It belongs to the one who, finds it. So that is the difference between them. The basis for the one found in the time of Jahiliyyah, apart from this express hadith, is that Allah says that regarding the wealth on the earth, Allah says, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ. Say, who makes haram the adornments that Allah has brought out for أخرج لعباده, for his slaves, وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ, and who has also made haram the good things from the rizq that Allah provided. قُلْ هِيَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. All of it, all the diamonds on this earth, all the crude oil on this earth, everything is intended for the believers. هِيَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. However, the Sharia was brought down that despite this acknowledgement that only Muslims deserve them, when they are earned by non-Muslims, then they are the property of those non-Muslims. But because they are meant originally for Muslims, in Yaum al-Qiyamah, it is the Muslims alone that will have them. Yaum al-Qiyamah, the kuffar will be punished for having them when they were on earth. They will be punished for having them while they were on earth. So even the Muslims will be grilled. ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُونَ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. You'll be grilled for these things that you enjoyed, even though they were meant for you originally. Allah will ask, how did you get it? When you got it, how did you spend it? And things like this. Then imagine someone who it wasn't meant for originally, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed to make use of it. Like someone who, your parents says you shouldn't take this when you were young, and you went ahead, to take it, and they left you so that your punishment will increase. So it's something like that. Back to what caused us to move into this. There's no difference in the lands. Once you find the alama on it, if you find the alama that it is during the time of Jahiliyyah, then it is for the Muslims. So what we diverted to was the evidence, the underlying evidence for the Muslim, or anyone who finds it, not necessarily a Muslim, as we said, anyone who finds it is now the owner. Now, for luqata, it is lost and found. It must be announced for 1 year. If after 1 year, the owner does not come up to claim it, then it is a loan. It is a loan. You can make use of it after 1 year of announcing. So after 1 year of announcing, you don't find it, nobody comes to claim it, then you can make use of it. After that, if somebody comes to claim it, and it's proven that he is the owner, by virtue of him being able to describe it, when you're announcing, you don't give the details, just say something was found lost here, or maybe something valuable was found, at this general location. So the person comes and says where he saw, where he thinks he misplaced it, and what that item is specifically. So if it is claimed, if it is verified that he is the owner, then you give it back to him. If you spent it, then it is a loan. You will now agree on terms of paying it back. So it is luqata. لأنه milk Muslim. So if it is found with Islamic emblems on it, it is luqata, because it shows that it is the property of a Muslim. Lam yu'lam. It's just that we don't know who that Muslim is. La yu'lam zawaluhu anhu. We don't know who that Muslim is. We don't know that Muslim didn't know, when it got lost. وهذا قول مالك والشافعي وأحمد وإن كان على. And so this the scholars Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, this is their position. وإن كان على بعضه علامات الكفر وعلى بعضه علامات الإسلام فكذلك نص عليه أحمد في رواية ابن منصور لأن الظاهر أنه صار إلى مسلم ولم يعلم زواله عن ملك مسلمين فأشبه ما على جميعه علامات المسلمين. So even if you find something, a treasure buried, and on parts of the treasure you find emblems of the Muslims that show that this is a property of Muslim, and on another part you find of the same treasure buried at the same location, you find emblems of non-Muslims. So once there's emblem of Islam and Muslims there, then that takes precedence. Then it shows that what the Sharia will assume is that a Muslim took possession of these things. That is why the emblems of Islam or Muslims is on it. So it will be regarded as luqata. Now, another thing that is linked, so what we just talked about is how you identify Rikaaz, to know how you identify buried treasure, to know whether it is Rikaaz that you pay zakah on 20%, or you are not to pay zakah on it, it is yours for keeps, or you are to announce it because it is luqata, and you wait for 1 year of announcing. If you don't find anybody that comes for it, then it is yours to use as a loan. If somebody comes thereafter to claim it, then you give him back. If nobody comes, then that loan becomes yours to keep. Now, the second thing is أن يجده في ملكه أو منتقل إليه فهو له في إحدى روايتين عن أحمد. Another thing is for him to find it in wealth. He finds the Rikaaz in wealth that was transferred to him. Inherited a piece of land from his father, and when digging one day, he found Rikaaz there with emblem of Jahiliyyah on it. So who owns it? Is it his father? If it is his father, then it is to be shared amongst the people who are inheritors of his father. Or is it for him who found it? So there's different opinions of the scholars on this issue. فَهُوَ لَهُ فِي إِحْدَى رِوَايَتَيْنِ عَنْ أَحْمَدٍ. Imam Ahmad, in one of the narrations from him, says that it is for the person who finds it. So if he finds it on his property that he inherited, then it is his. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that he inherited. He could have bought the piece of land or somebody gave it to him as a gift. Any which way that the property transferred to him, if he finds it, Imam Ahmad in one of the narrations says it is for him to keep. ومذهب الشافعي أنه للمالك قبله إن عرف إن اعترف به. It says it is for Imam Shafi'i says it is for the owner of the property, original owner of the property, before it was transferred to the person who found it. So this is the position of Imam Shafi'i. وَإِنْ لَمْ if the owner of that land, says that it is his own, if he claims it. If he doesn't claim it, then it is to the one who owned it before it got to the one who transferred it to the person who found it. If that one too doesn't claim it like that until the first owner, this is the position of Imam Shafi'i. ورواية الأولى لأحمد أصح. Sheikh Al-Qahtaani, rahimahullah, he says that the riwayah of Imam Ahmad is the more authentic, is the stronger of the opinion, or the strongest of the opinions of the scholars on this issue. Because by definition, Rikaaz is you finding something, coming upon something where there's on property that isn't owned by somebody. So you happen upon property that isn't owned by somebody, and you find Rikaaz on it, then it's for you to keep. Where there's difference of opinion among the scholars is if you now find Rikaaz on property that is owned by somebody. Somebody hires you to dig a well and you find Rikaaz there. Who owns it? There's different opinion among the scholars in that regard. So the third topic under Rikaaz is an yajidahu fi milki adami muslimin ma'sum aw dhimmi. Just what we talked about. Is for you to find this Rikaaz on the property of a Muslim that is ma'sum, i.e. is not a slave. Of course, a slave can't own property because he himself is property. Whatever he owns is the property of his owner. Or you find it on the in the property of a dhimmi, somebody who is a non-Muslim living under the protection of the Muslims in return for tax that he is paying to the Muslims. فَعَنِ أحمد ما يدل على أنه لصاحب الدار. For Imam Ahmad, there's one of his narration is that it is for the owner of the land. And Allahu A'lam, this is the more correct opinion of the scholars. وهو قول لأبي حنيفة. Imam Abu Hanifa also says this. وَنَقْلَ عَنْ أَحْمَدْ أَنَّهُ لِوَاجِهِ. Another narration from Imam Ahmad says it's for the one who finds it. قال القاسي وهو صحيح. Imam Al-Qadi, Imam Qadi Al-Riyad, he says that this second position is more correct. Allahu A'lam. The more correct opinion is that it belongs to the one who owns the land. The one who owns the land. And that will be consistent with the previous topic that we took on the issue. If he finds it as part of property that was transferred to him, either that he bought the land, he was digging maybe for a well or for whatever, and he found Rikaaz, there, it's for him. It's for him. Now, there's a question here regarding Imam Ahmad's view that if a father before dying knew he had some wealth but forgot where it was before dying, within Imam Ahmad's ruling, is it still allowed to consider sharing the wealth now found in the property will to one of his sons according to the Sharia principle for this inheritor? Now, in this case, a son finds on land that he inherited Rikaaz. Don't let's use the word Rikaaz. He found wealth that was buried on land that he inherited from his father. He was digging and he came upon it. Now he finds that now. So it is not Rikaaz. Neither is it luqata. It is not Rikaaz because, as you said, neither is it luqata. Because the owner is known. Luqata, we don't know the owner, so we announce for 1 year. Rikaaz, it was buried there during time of Jahiliyyah. This is not luqata. We know the owner. It is not Rikaaz. It was not buried during the time of Jahiliyyah. It was buried there by his father. He just forgot where he buried it. So it is property of his father, and it is to be shared amongst the inheritors. It does not belong to the son. But if he inherited that land from his father and he unearthed this wealth and found the alama of Jahiliyyah on it, then this is Rikaaz. This is Rikaaz. Or he unearthed it and found alama of Islam on it, and evidence that shows that it belongs to another person who owned that land before his father. Then this is luqata, and is to be given to the family of those who owned that land before, you know, it got to his father, and his father now, this man now inherited it from his father, because there's alama there. To be like the case in Surah Al-Kahf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where a man buried, you know, treasure under and built a wall on top of it to mask it, to protect it, and that wall, you know, was about to collapse, and Khidr erected the wall, you know, but prevented it from falling. So he said that when he was explaining to Musa, he said, Amma al-Jidar wa amma al-Jidaru fakana li-ghulamaini yatimaini fil Madina wa kana tahtahu kanzun lahuma. He didn't refer to as Rikaaz, he referred to as kanz, as treasure, lahuma. Wa kana abuhuma salihah. And their father was a righteous person. وَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ أَنْ يَبْلُغَا أَشُدَّهُمَا وَيَسْتَخْرِجَا كَنْزَهُمَا رَحْمَةً مِنْ رَبِّكَ. Allah wanted the children to grow up so that they would be able to unearth the kanz by themselves. It's an inheritance of their father. It's known. So it's a kanza, فَأَرَادَ أَنْ يَبْلُغَا أَشُدَّهُمَا وَيَسْتَخْرِجَا كَنْزَهُمَا. So it is a property that belongs to huma, both of them. They are the inheritors of the father. So the same thing, you know, the Barakallahu fikum. Now, we were on the third. If you find it on land belonging to someone, whether it's a dhimmi or a Muslim, the more correct opinion is it belongs to the one who owns the land. In wajadahu, the fourth point is in wajadahu fi ardil harb. If he finds it in a non-Muslim land belonging to the kuffar, فَإِنْ لَمْ يَقْدِرْ عَلَيْهِ إِلَّا بِجَمَاعَةٍ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. If he was not able to extract it except with the help of a group of Muslims, you know, he and a group of Muslims, you know, found it and extracted it, فَهُوَ غَنِيمَ لَهُمْ. Then this is ghanima, and it will be treated, that is war booty, and it is to be treated as such. And they, as a community, the people who found it will benefit communally from it. وَإِنْ قَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ بِنَفْسِهِ فَهُوَ بِوَاجِدِهِ. If he alone found it, then it is Rikaaz, and he pays 1/5 from it. So if you found in land of the kuffar, it is ghanima. If you find it in the land of kuffar as a group, then it is ghanima. If you found in land of kuffar as an individual, it is the same as if you found it in the lands of the Muslims, but found an emblem of Jahiliyyah on it. Then it is Rikaaz, and you pay 1/5 on that. So the last point, the Sheikh Rahimullah puts here, it's a wasfu al-Rikaaz. Oh, sorry, we're taking that. وهو في sorry وهو في ركاز الخمس ما وأما no, I think I skipped somewhere here. رابعا يجري في أرض الحرب Okay, what's the okay, this is qismu. Okay, al-mas'alatu al-thalith fi sifat al-rikaz alladhi fihi al-khumus. What are the rikaz that we will find? And there will be khumus, 1/5 to pay on it. وهو كل ما كان مالا على الاختلاف أنواعه. Anything that is wealth. So anything, you know, of wealth, of whatever nature it is, whether it is gold or silver or what do you call it, or iron or lead, whatever, you know, it is, whether it is pottery, cooking utensils or anything like that, once it is buried in the time of Jahiliyyah, then you pay 1/5 of it. Of course, if it is utensils or something, you're not going to cut a 1/5 of it and, you know, give it as zakat. It's not going to be useful to the recipients. Neither is it going to be, what is left going to be useful to you. So in that case, you estimate, not you that you estimate, you value, you know, the treasure, and you give 1/5 of that in Rikaaz. The same thing in trade goods under zakat. If you're selling cement, for instance, you're not going to give 2.5% of your cement to the zakat institution. You're going to give the value of that. But if you're selling gold, you're selling diamond and things like that, then you can give, you know, 2.5% of that, because it will be beneficial. It will be more than beneficial. Now, where were we? Okay. وهو قول أحمد وأصحاب الرأي وإسحاق وإحدى روايتين عن مالك. So a lot of scholars, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, they are of this position in one or more of their of the narrations that came from them. والقول الآخر لا تجب إلا في الأثمان. Some say that Rikaaz, one is not to pay anything on it except that it is athman, that is gold and silver. ولكن يراد عليهم بقول صلى الله عليه وسلم وفي ركاز الخمس. However, that position is rejected because Prophet ﷺ said وفي ركاز الخمس. He didn't say a type of rikaz. He said وفي rikaz. So it covers all types of rikaz. Once it has value, that is. But you can find a note, for instance, written by somebody during the time of Jahiliyyah and buried, you know, and it has alama of Jahiliyyah on it. It was buried by Kufar during the time of, you know, Jahiliyyah. If there's no value attached to it, then it's not valuable, it's not wealth, it's not rikaz in that case. But if there's value attached to it, then they say, this is the handwriting of Abraham Lincoln or something like that, or whatever people attach well to. Sell it to them and get your own money and pay 1/5 of that, 20% of it as zakat. لأنه مال. So because it is, you know, mal, مظهور عليه من مال الكفار فوجب فيه الخمس مع اختلاف أنواعه كالغنيمة. So it is wealth that someone happened upon, and you know, it was buried in its wealth of the kuffar in the time of Jahiliyyah. Is now someone has found it. Now, the next point related to Rikaz is the qadr al-wajib fi al-Rikaz al-Khumus. What you have to pay is 1/5. وأما مصرفه قال الخرقي هو لأهل الصدقات ونص عليه أحمد في رواية وإن صدق به على المساكين أجزأه وهو قول الشافعي لأنه مستفاد من الأرض أشبه المعدن وزرع. So who are the recipients going to be? Imam al-Kharqi, he said it is for the people, ahli sadaqat, the people that are to get sadaqat, that is zakat. So this is in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60. The 8 people that are mentioned, the 8 categories that are mentioned there. So these are the people that to benefit from it. And this is the safest opinion because it's under zakah. Some of the scholars say that if he does sadaqah to it, to the masakin, that to be accepted from him. The masakin are part of the recipients of zakah. Innama sadaqa li fuqara wal masakin. Then the others are minina alayha wa fi. So that is Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60. So it's still this position is still accommodated. وهو قول الشافعي لأنه مستفاد من الأرض أشبه المعدن والزرع. So Imam Shafi'i says that it is something gotten out of the earth. So it is like farm produce and coal. So anybody that can produce, that can benefit from, that can receive zakah of farm produce can also receive zakah of Rikaaz, which goes back to that they are the recipients of zakah mentioned in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60. There are other positions, but this is the most correct of those opinions. Who is 1/5 of Rikaaz compulsory on to pay? يجب على من وجده من مسلم وذمي وعاقل والمجنون وهذا قول أكثر أهل العلم. The position of the vast majority of scholars, and it is the most correct opinion, is that it is for whoever finds it, Muslim or dhimmi. Whether it's a Muslim that found it or is a non-Muslim living in the lands of Muslim in return for paying tax to the Muslims, whether it is somebody who has his intellect with him or a madman that finds it. وَهَذَا قَوْلُ أَكْثَرِ أَهْلِنَا. This is the position of the vast majority of the scholars. Imam Ibn Mundhir says, أَجْمَعَ كُلُّ مَنْ نَحْفَظُ عَنْهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ عَلَى أَنَّ عَلَى الذِّمِّ فِي الرِّكَازِ يَجِدُهُ الْخُمُسِ. Says the people that they learned from, Imam Mundhir says that the people that they learned from are united that anyone who finds, including a dhimmi, Rikaaz, who finds Rikaaz, including a dhimmi, are to pay 1/5 of it. فقال الشافعي لا يجب الخمس على من تجب عليه زكاة. Imam Shafi'i says we shouldn't combine asking someone to pay on Rikaaz and also ask him to pay zakah, as this is obviously not the weightiest of the position based on the explicit hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَفِي رِكَازِ الْخُمُسِ. Now, so that settles the issue of Rikaaz. We pay 1/5 on it. Whoever finds it, we don't wait for 1 year and there's no nisaab on it. Whoever finds it on his land and is the owner, if he finds it on someone else's land, then it is for the owner of that property. And we talked about other nuances related to Rikaaz. So we'll stop there, inshallah, today. Inshallah, if Allah permits us, next week we'll take the next topic, which is what most of us deal with, which is the zakat on athman, al-dhahab, wal-fidda, wal-umalat. So the zakat on currency, whether that be gold, silver, which are both the original currencies, or umalat, fiat money, paper money, and all that. Now, do we have any questions? Any question? Okay. Barakallahu fikum. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.